Thank you for giving me the floor under these unconventional circumstances in these unusual times. The International Institute of Space Law was founded in 1960 as a global association for space law with individual and institutional members from almost 50 countries. The Institute's key mission is the promotion of further development of space law and expansion of the rule of law in the exploration and use of outer space for peaceful purposes. Before I get into detail about the Institute's history, I want to provide a short glimpse into the history of space law. Some amongst the early pioneers of space law were Émile Laude, who made the first reference to problems of space law in a commentary on air law published in France in 1910. A paper on legal problems associated to interplanetary flight was presented by the Soviet aviation expert V.A. Zaza in 1926. Then the Czech lawyer Vladimir Mandl went on to write the first monograph on space law. And the Soviet lawyer Korovin published a paper on the conquest of the stratosphere and international law in 1933. Then, when space law development began in earnest, international consensus on basic legal rules applying to space activities was established in relatively short time. It began with the Legal Principles Declaration, a United Nations General Assembly resolution that was adopted without a vote in 1963. The Outer Space Treaty, that largely mirrored the provisions of the Principles Declaration and expanded on it, was opened for signature in 1967 and entered into force in the same year. It was then followed by further treaties, amongst them the Astronaut Rescue Agreement, the Liability Convention, the Registration Convention, and the Moon Agreement, until 1979. Afterwards, the political momentum had shifted. This had largely to do with the largely failure of the Moon Agreement. And we came from the period of treaties to the era of resolutions. So the further development of space law from then on was mainly conducted throughout UN General Assembly resolutions. And nowadays we are going even beyond that to other soft law instruments such as codes of conduct or guidelines. So for the history of the Institute. Until 1958 there were no studies on legal problems in the International Astronautical Federation. At the 8th International Astronautical Congress in Barcelona, a special committee in charge of defining the respective areas of jurisdiction for air and space law was established. And at the 9th International Astronautical Congress that was held in The Hague in 1958, the first colloquium on the law of outer space was held. It had 44 participants from 10 countries. Among those who initiated these developments was Andrew G. Haley. A permanent legal committee was set up by the 9th General Assembly of the International Astronautical Federation. It invited all interested jurists in the entire world to participate in this committee. And also a second colloquium and session of the permanent committee was scheduled for the 10th International Astronautical Congress, which was held in London under the chairmanship of Christopher Shawcross. It adopted a resolution to replace the permanent committee with an International Institute of Space Law that worked within the framework of the International Astronautical Federation. The aims and objectives of the Institute are the following: the promotion of further development of space law and expansion of the rule of law in the exploration and use of outer space for peaceful purposes. The fostering of development of professional standards and professional ethics in the field of space law. The holding of meetings, colloquia and competitions on juridical and social science aspects of space activities, thereby providing fora for individuals from different legal systems and regions of the world to engage in the free expression and exchange of ideas relevant to space law and space policy. The preparation or commissioning of studies and reports. The publication of books, proceedings, reports and position papers. The granting and presentation of awards and certificates. The cooperation with appropriate international organizations and national institutions in the field of space law and the conduct of other such activities as may be considered desirable in fostering the development of space law and studies of legal and social science aspects of the exploration and use of outer space for peaceful purposes. The International Institute of Space Law then continued to operate as an organization under the umbrella of the International Astronautical Federation until it was officially established as an association under Dutch law in 2007. Before that, the Institute was part of the International Astronautical Federation. Statutes were amended after a lengthy review process in 2013, and its bylaws were amended several times by the General Assembly. Now, amongst the activities of the Institute until today are, of course, the annual colloquia that always take part on the occasion of the annual International Astronautical Congress. Then the Manfred Lachs Moot Court for Space Law that is taking place each year as an international simulated court where space law students can provide an example of how legal proceedings in space law might actually work out. And the teaching of space law at universities and other institutions worldwide. I myself have the honor and the pleasure to teach in a seminar on space law at the University of Graz each year. Then the IISL is an observer to the UN COPUOS Legal Subcommittee. Together with the International Astronautical Federation and the International Academy for Astronautics, the International Institute of Space Law is co-organizing the annual International Astronautical Congresses. Then there are annual awards handed out to distinguished space lawyers. The picture at bottom right actually shows my boss and mentor, Professor Brunner, getting the IISL Lifetime Achievement Award at last year's IAC in Washington, D.C. Then several papers and publications, and the holding of symposia such as the annual Arlene Galloway Symposium or the annual symposium held in conjunction with the European Center for Space Law at the annual sessions of the UN COPUOS Legal Subcommittee. Unfortunately, this year, of course, the Legal Subcommittee, together with the symposium, had to be cancelled due to the public health situation. Then the IISL had an informal consultant status with the United Nations and especially the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space for many years. In 2008, in the presence of Honorary Director Ernst Fasan, the IISL became an observer to the Legal Subcommittee. I myself did have the honor to meet Professor Fasan several times at the UN in Vienna. So, this brings us to the end of the presentation. I thank you for tuning in. If you have got any questions or further comments, do not hesitate to contact me. And I thank you very much. Goodbye.